Haim. I've had some big guests on this show. Hillary Clinton's been on, Justin Bieber's been on, Tom Cruise.
And that was just last week, Ando. But to be to that week of power,
yes.
Who have we got today?
I'm more excited about this fellow than anyone else. His name's Brian. He joins us from the United States. I met him on my travels recently through a friend. Brian, thanks for popping on the show, bud.
How are you, Brian?
Oh, hi. My pleasure.
Now, Brian,
you start, Ando. You introduce Brian because then I'm going to try and clarify this.
You are the Appleist. Brian,
That's right. I am the Appleist.
Yeah. I was so impressed when I met you. We started talking about apples and it just came up in conversation. You didn't lead it. And then I realized that you knew a hell of a lot about apples to the point where you told me that you have a blog. It's called The Appleist, where you rank all apples and you just know everything about them.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of apples out there. There's like thousands and thousands of apples.
Yep.
So I'm not going to claim that I know about every single apple. I'm not a psychopath. But I do know what apples I like and what apples I don't like, and that's what the Appleist is all about. It's top 6 right now. The top 6 apples in the world. Yeah. And the bottom 5 worst apples in the world.
Great. Well, I was going to ask, and I was hoping, Brian, that there was a segment, bad apples, on the Appleist website. It wasn't just reserved for good apples. I mean, how long is your delight with apples gone on for?
Well, it all started when I took a bite into this very specific apple called the Sweet Tango. It is the best apple. It is crisp. It's like biting into a sweet piece of celery. The snap on this thing is ridiculous. It's like molecularly designed to snap. And it's sweet and tangy. It's the perfect apple. Right. When I bit into that, I was like, every single other apple is garbage. And so I started reevaluating. All the apples that had been thrust on us by the mainstream media, all these apples, these commercialized pieces of garbage that have been thrust on us. We don't even have a choice. Apples are just thrown in front of us, and we eat them mindlessly like a bunch of idiots. We don't know what we're missing. Tangos are out there, and we're eating garbage.
This is true.
I'm definitely picking up on the passion, and it checks out as it does when you glance at your blog, and that is, I mean, similar to Adam and Eve. You've had an apple that changed your life. Yours was for better, theirs was for worse. Right. But you've had this moment now, and so am I right to believe that in your mind, of all the apples you're aware of, you've obviously got the Sweet Tango at the top. There we heard with its perfect molecular structure and its gorgeous, juicy skin bounce. And then would you have if I named an apple, would you be able to sort of slot that apple somewhere into the hierarchy? Like if I said a Golden Delicious, like where would that sit for you?
Golden Delicious is a piece of garbage apple, mostly because it is it's a cross between a Red Delicious. Yeah. And the Red Delicious is by far, it's not the worst apple, but it's the worst apple that's popular. And I know, I looked this up.
So, Brian,
it's a Kardashian.
The Red Delicious apple. Yep. The Red Delicious apple is one of the top 5 apples in Australia, and it's a crime. It's also one of the top 5 apples in America. It's a worldwide conspiracy. This apple is an Illuminati-backed crapple that is pure garbage. It tastes like you're eating coffee grinds in a leather glove, and it's everywhere. Everywhere. I don't know why they're in every store. Yeah. It's the worst apple.
It is. It's
just
a bad apple.
Okay, sorry, just marking down -1 against Red
Brian,
Delicious and Golden Delicious.
We're going to go to a song here, Brian, but on 131060, I'd like people to ring up and just pitch your apple, throw an apple at Brian, and just find out where it sits in the hierarchy, because I've been exposed to brand new apples that I wasn't even aware of through Brian, and I'm loving it.
I'm trying to track down a case of these golden tangs.
These sweet tangos.
Sweet tangs. Sweet tangos.
131060 is the number. Brian, you hang on the line, and after this, we'll take Australia's calls and see where people's apples, their suggestions, see where they sit in the hierarchy.
In a brand new segment, comparing apples and apples, on the Hamish Andy Show, you'll get it nowhere else because we have access to Brian. And look, if you're a fan of an Apple brand or an Apple breed, back yourself. Call up, see where it sits in Brian's hierarchy of apples, 13, 10, 60. Brian's going to tell him where it sits in the hierarchy.
Brian, before we go into that, since you've come forth with your blog, have you had any big Apple companies out there reaching out to you?
Trying to shut you down.
Or to try and get you to endorse their products?
Yes, 100% full disclosure. I did get contacted by Sweet Tango. It's a very small Apple company, and they did send me free apples. However, I professed my love for the apple first.
Yes.
And then they reached out to me. I'm not being paid by Sweet Tango. The only payment that I've received from them is in the form of 12 apples that were mailed to my door and an exorbitant amount of packaging.
Yep.
Way too much packaging, just in case they're listening. You got to tone it down with the styrofoam. And they were wrapped like hand grenades.
So very much a Michael Jordan wearing Nikes first and then them saying, hey, would you like to make your own scenario? Not the other way around. So you were a fan of the Sweet Tankers first. All right, Brian, we've got...
Kirk joins us on 131060. Kirk, take it away. There's a little bit of a delay to Brian in LA, but take it away. Which apple would you like to put forward?
Ahoy, boys.
Ahoy to you,
Ahoy,
Kirk.
ahoy, Kirk.
Mate, Brian, I've got a question. What's your thoughts on the Pink Lady?
Oh, I'm so Pink Lady. That is a top 3 apple.
Oh, good.
You know what?
Good boy,
You
mate.
nailed
Good
it.
boy.
And that is one. Yeah, and that is one of the top 5 apples in Australia, otherwise known as the Crips Pink. It is a delicious apple. It's got a sweet and sour combination, and it's not the snappiest of apples.
No.
Yeah.
But it does have a good bite. Pink Lady, I am shocked. I am shocked that was the first apple brought to me.
Oh, that's good news. That's good news. Well done, Kirk.
This is what can happen.
Okay, we'll move on to a vet. What would you like to put forth to the Appleist, Brian?
Jazz apple.
Another
Hello?
good apple. What is going on? A jazz apple. See, the thing that's weird about the jazz apple is that it's shaped like a giant olive.
Yeah.
And that's a little weird. But other than that, it's got a great taste, and it's got a cool name. I mean, who doesn't love a jazz apple? That's a great name. The only apple in existence that has 2 Z's in the name.
Yes, ever since the delisted Snazzle apple. That is correct. Alan, ahoy, Alan.
Ahoy.
Welcome. And what apple breed would you like to throw at Brian in Los Angeles, our favourite apple expert in the world?
For an international flavour, I'm going to go with the Fuji apple.
Okay, see, if you're going to go for a Fuji apple, you might as well just throw that in the garbage and pick up a gala apple, because they're pretty much the same in terms of availability. They look the same, but the Fuji has a little bit of Golden Delicious in it. You don't want that. Go for the gala.
The gala.
Alan, don't get him started on Golden Delicious. He is a sworn enemy of them.
The Golden Delicious, it is an insult to anyone who appreciates the definition of the word delicious. It's not delicious. It's not even really golden. It's
Kind of pale
yellow.
green.
It's not even gold.
It's true. Okay. Thank you. Don't ignore a Fuji. Go with a gala apple is the recommendation from Brian
Throw
the
the
Appleist.
Fuji's in the garbage.
Glenn, wrap
Glenn,
this
welcome,
up.
welcome,
Wrap this up
Glenn.
for us, Glenn.
Ahoy, Glenn. Welcome to Apples, call it Comparing Apples and Apples, where we rank your favourite breed against Brian in Los Angeles, who is the apple expert of the show, the preferred apple expert of the show. Glenn, what's your favourite breed of apple?
Gravenstein apple.
Ooh, Gravenstein.
Gravenstein apple. Gravenstein, I've had a Gravenstein once.
And how was it? I think we
lost him. We've lost
Have we
the
lost?
Appleist.
Oh my God!
Are you there, Brian?
Hopefully.
I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Sorry, got you. Yeah, so
we
we-
lost you for a second. We were worried that your sponsors at Sweet Tango Apples had come in and taken you off the air because you said positive things about the Pink Lady and the Jazz Apple. But you're back. Sorry, pick it up again for Gravenstein apples.
Okay, I had a Gravenstein once. It was a grainy nightmare. It's not an attractive apple. It looks like an ape's butt cheeks. It is like dusty looking. It looks like it needs to be cleaned.
Okay.
And it's yeah.
Yeah. Now that's
sorry to-
We've got time for one more. Tom.
We don't want to end on a bad note.
But we're risking it. Tom, what apple are you putting forth?
First of all, happy birthday, Andy.
Thank you, Tom.
Good boy, Tom.
Tom, go for it.
Granny Smith apple.
Oh boy.
All right, you just made a mistake. okay? Because
Oh, boy.
the only apple that's worse than a Red Delicious apple is a Granny Smith. It is. If you ever see a wicker basket that has Granny Smith in it, it's because even the Red Deliciouses were chosen before that piece of garbage apple that is. It's just rotting away in hotel gyms across the world. They can't even give these things away for free. They're disgusting. They're a hospital apple. They're unwashed and wrapped in plastic at gas stations across the world. People don't want them. And you know that nobody wants them because they frequently sell them with caramel dipping sauce. And let me tell you something.
Yeah.
If you need to give caramel dipping sauce to sell an apple, then it's not an apple. But if you want to use it in a pie, that's fine.
Okay, a pie-worthy / hospital-grade apple that even they struggle to give away to horses. Brian,
thank you so much.
Outstanding job.
How can people follow you, Brian? Because obviously there's a lot more Apple enthusiasts out there. Where do they go?
Well, you can go to my Apple blog, appleist.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at Brian Frangie.
Okay, beautiful. Thanks, Brian. We really appreciate it, bud.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, back to work, back to the supermarket, sneering at apples. Thanks, Brian.
Haim, news of new apple varieties.
It's so exciting.
Has just hit the world, about 2 weeks old, and we know one guy that we have to speak to about this.
We don't get to break Apple news very often on the show. The last time we had our mate Brian on, who is known in, well, not just in fruit circles, Ando, in world circles
as the
Appleist. He's an Apple expert.
Yeah.
He got into the game himself.
Yes.
He doesn't come from, I don't believe he comes from an Apple family or a fresh produce background.
No.
He started
Not
as
a farmer amongst his family members.
Started as a fan of the fruit, and he is now an expert of it. I guess like someone going to a basketball game and getting called onto the court, and now they're dunking and scoring 50 points a match.
And you would think Apple companies would invent this position to try and drum up a bit of excitement.
He's not funded by any big Apple company, be it Apple or someone else.
But he joins us now. Brian Frange, thank you very much for coming back on the show.
Hello, everybody. It's good to be back. I hope since I've left, everyone's taken their Red Delicious apples and thrown them in a dumpster and set it on fire. The worst apple in America. I can't believe my influence doesn't stretch that far because the Red Delicious apple is still the most popular apple in Australia. What's going on?
It remains on sale. Tough to light an apple on fire. I don't know. Now, just following through on the visual. Brian, it's true, isn't it? You don't take any money from big fruit?
Oh, no. I refuse to sully my good name by taking big fruit, super PAC money. I do not take any money at all. All my opinions are my own. However, that being said, I have visited orchards that are run by certain companies, and I have sampled the forbidden fruits that are not out yet that I can talk about. But that does not mean I'm accepting. I'm not lining my pocket with Apple money.
You're simply there as an independent fruit observer. Of course, you've got to taste the produce. I mean, Brian, the last time we had you on the show,
2017.
2017. It's been a couple of years. We've missed you. We just to give people a taste if they're not familiar with your work, we've lined up a bunch of people that we just grabbed that have written into the show that are on our very important podcast list to throw a few Apple species at you, varieties at you to get your feedback, because our favorite aspect of your profession is that you're able to expertly and immediately assess an apple variety.
But before we get into that, Frange, I just wanted to, we should remind people, and this was quite incredible, but when you talked about the Sweet Tango, which was your favourite back in the day, we didn't know about that particular apple here in Australia. Is it still your favourite?
It is still my favorite. It is still the number one apple. It's been the number one apple for 3 years running.
Yep. Wow.
However, there has been so many hot, fresh, up-and-coming apples that I would say the Sweet Tango is at risk of being dethroned any year now.
Who would you say are the three top suitors for the crown?
Absolutely. There's a new apple coming to town that people feel like might be the next big thing in Applelandia, and that is the Cosmic Crisp, which has such a wonderful name.
Yes.
I mean, who This is the most incredible name. It's better than the Sweet Tango, which, by the way, not the best name. If you look at the name Sweet Tango, it's got one T.
Yeah.
So really the first part is sweet.
Yeah. Oh, it's either sweet ango or sweet tango.
Yeah,
That's confusing.
So there's a new apple coming out called the Cosmic Crisp.
Two
And
C's?
I don't know
Two
where
C's
it's
in the
going to be
middle?
available in Australia, but it is currently grown only in Central Washington, and it's coming out on December 1st.
Have you tasted it?
I've tasted it. I went to the orchard last year before it was even out, and I walked up to a tree that was filled with Cosmic Crisp, these dark apples with starlight little dots on them. That's why it's called the Cosmic Crisp. And I plucked it from the tree, and I took out a bite, and it wasn't very good. But that's because it wasn't ready yet. It was
Right.
It was still being.
Whoa, that really was a fruit anticlimax. I was getting ready for just an avalanche of adjectives, but instead it was just a mistimed sample.
Have you sampled it?
Andy, they're going to make 2 million boxes of this stuff in 2020. They're going to go all over the world. You're going to get your hands on a Cosmic Crisp. I have a feeling it's part Honeycrisp, part Enterprise apple. No one's ever eaten Enterprise in their entire lives. I'm unsure that they exist. But everybody knows the Honeycrisp, a.k.a., as the growers call it, the Money Crisp, because
You start that off, you got a cash crop.
Well, we want to see whether your tastes have changed. Tastes do evolve.
Yep.
And a couple of our very important podcasters are joining us now. George, ahoy to you, mate.
Ahoy.
George, want to run an apple past Frange?
The Royal Gala.
okay, you got to be really careful with Gala apples because there's a lot of them. And the Royal Gala, if you're talking about the Royal Gala that's primarily grown in New Zealand, that is the top 11th apple in all of apples.
Whoa.
It's a delicious apple. Royal Gala is number 11. It's a serviceable apple. It's currently the number one most in-demand apple in America. It's a New Zealand workhorse. It's a fine lunch apple and very consistent. And when it's in your lunch bag, you can rest assured your fruit serving of the day will be enjoyable. However, there are other types of galas that people aren't aware of. You might buy a gala from the store thinking it's a delicious, serviceable Royal Gala, when in fact it's a different variety of gala. The Rainier Gala, one of the worst gala apples, one of the worst apples in all of apples. It's like eating Clorox wet naps without dying, basically. It's a horrible. It's got the acidic kick of expired medicine, and it's got a filmy texture. It's a mediocre apple from a fruit company that's wildly inconsistent. And if you go with a gala, go with the New Zealand Australian Royal Gala, not these other gala pretenders.
That's what we've been saying for a long
That's what I
time.
have to say, George.
Okay, George. That's good feedback, George.
Take that, George.
Okay,
George,
beautiful.
you definitely got more than you bargained for.
Arista joins. Ahoy, Arista.
Ahoy.
You're on the line with Brian, the Appleist. Is there an apple you wanted to inquire about?
Yes, so when I was traveling in Costa Rica, I actually tried the water apple, and I just wanted the experts' thoughts on that.
Okay, the water apple I have never actually tried. I will say this, though. There's a reason why I have not tried the water apple.
All right.
And that's because the water apple is not an apple. It's a tropical fruit. And so it's not part of my purview. And I don't know if I stated this, Hamish Andy, but we both agreed that I would only be reviewing apple. I am an apple purist. And to have someone come on and throw an exotic tropical fruit my way is a crisis of conscience for me. I can't possibly speak to this thing.
Okay, no, we take that on board.
Arista, what are you doing to us here? You've tried to get him with a trick apple.
Thank you, Arista. We're one final one.
Daniel.
Daniel, ahoy to you.
Ahoy, boys.
Brian Frange is waiting by the Appleist. Did you have an apple you wanted to inquire about?
Yeah, Pink Lady.
Oh, I'm kind of sad that people haven't come out with apples that are terrible because it's more fun to make fun of apples than to sing apples' praises. But the Pink Lady apple is the 8th best apple on my list. It is a sweet and tart it's a headliner apple.
Well, it's Australian. I think it's an Australian variety. It was invented in Australia.
invent it?
Yeah.
For one of
You are absolutely
Am I
right.
there? Alongside, and I'm wary of putting this one in your out there because I don't like it particularly, but the Granny Smith's also an Australian one.
Absolutely terrible. Granny Smith is the 16th worst apple on the apple list.
Yep.
It is. It's the only apple that makes a Red Delicious look appetizing. I'd say it's an Illuminati-backed crapple, and it's a piece of garbage. But it's a good cooking apple. It's a good cooking apple.
It's still so nice you can find a positive in the diatribe. Brian, sometimes you say something's the 8th best or 16th worst. What's the total number? Where's the crossover point where something stops being in the best and becomes the worst?
58.
58. So does that mean there's 116 apples in the group?
Guys, there are thousands of apple varieties out there, and I'm only beginning to scratch the surface of my reviews. I will be doing this until the day I die. So far, I only review apples that I get to eat 2 of. If there's a random apple that falls from a tree and I get 1 of them, I don't get to review it.
Yep.
And then I also re-review apples every couple of years just to make sure, because apple varieties they will wax and wane, and sometimes an apple that was once good, now the crop's bad, it's dying out, it's overproduced.
Yep.
That's actually what happened to the Red Delicious. There was a time when Red Deliciouses were red and were delicious, and over time they were so mass-produced and wrapped in plastic wrap and shoved into hospital cafeterias that they became bad.
Yeah, right.
Brian, you're a man that lives by his rules. So if you're in the Garden of Eden, Brian, and Eve gave you the apple, before you could say whether or not the forbidden fruit was delicious, you would have another to review it
You'd
properly.
have to ask Eve for a second.
You'd have to have,
I
you'd have to have 2 apples. Really?
I would not let them kick me out until I had 2.
Really ticking off God further.
Thanks so much for joining us, Brian. People can check it out, theappleist.com. Appreciate it, bud.
My pleasure.
Can't wait for a Cosmic Crisp.
Hey, for many years, we've turned to one man when it comes to all things about apples. The Appleist.
Yes, Apple's the fruit, not the famous technology company.
Yes.
We go to Marshy for that.
We do.
Marshy knows all about Apple, but Brian knows all about apples.
He lives in the States. He's got his own website going, and this would be close to 8 years since we've kind of turned to him. They don't come up often, questions about apples, but
Although
we know where to go to.
I do think of him often.
You texted me the other day.
The appleologist, yeah.
You said to me...
Couldn't remember because I was at the supermarket with the kids and we were buying apples. And because we've had him on the show before just to give us the do's and don'ts. And for people that remember some of Brian's segments, I mean, the passion with which he speaks about the lowlier breeds of apples, the worst flavors.
Well, here's a refresher.
Have a listen.
Hello, everybody. It's good to be back. I hope since I've left, everyone's taken their Red Delicious apples and thrown them in a dumpster and set it on fire. The worst apple in America. There's a new apple coming to town that people feel like might be the next big thing in Applelandia, and that is the Cosmic Crisp, which has such a wonderful name.
The Granny Smith's also an Australian one.
Absolutely terrible. Granny Smith is the 16th worst apple on the apple list.
Yep.
It is. It's the only apple that makes a Red Delicious look appetizing. I'd say it's an Illuminati-backed crapple, and it's a piece of garbage. The Rainier Gala, one of the worst apples in all of apples. It's like eating Clorox wet naps without dying, basically. It's a horrible. It's got the acidic kick of expired medicine, and it's got a filmy texture. It's a mediocre apple from a fruit company that's wildly inconsistent. And if you go with the gala, go with the New Zealand Australian Royal Gala, not these other gala pretenders.
I mean, you hear that. Now I hear it now, and I remember the brands. But at the supermarket, it can swirl around your head. You know, you're looking at Cosmic Crisps, you're looking at the Royal Gala, you're looking at a Royal Crisp, or something, and you're like, which was the bad one? Which was the good one?
He joins us again now. Brian, good to hear from you, buddy. Ahoy to you.
Hello. It's so good to be back to share my apple wisdom with Australia once again.
Well, this one comes as a specific call out from a girl called Maddie.
Okay.
She writes, and I'll read it verbatim. Years ago, you guys had on the show The Appleist, which was very good.
Thank you.
So that's nice to hear, isn't it, Brian? Just
Yours
straight off the top.
sincerely, Maddie. We just wanted to get you up to reminisce about that.
She goes on to say, one particular apple he spoke of was the Cosmic Crisp.
Yes.
Which he went on about. Being years ago, the memory was stored, but kind of forgotten when suddenly it reappeared at my local supermarket, displayed proudly. I purchased some of these and took them home to try. Amazing, I was proudly introducing them to everyone. No one had heard of the Cosmic Crisp. While telling people about the episode, I suddenly remembered he talked about this on his website, and I looked up the Appleist website. Imagine my surprise when looking at the website that it wasn't at number 1. Instead of being in the top 5 or top 10, it is listed in the top 25 shittiest apples.
This is I think, why I texted the other day from the supermarket, because I have clear memories of the Cosmic Crisp being named the winner.
Yes.
And I think that's confused me as well, Brian.
And then Maddie goes on to say, I wonder if Big Fruit has got a hold of him.
Okay, yeah, a lot here, a lot of fruit to take off the tree here, Brian. First of all, is any of your Apple opinions sponsored by big or small fruit companies?
No, I am 100% independent, and I review my apples for the love of the fruit, and I don't make any money. In fact, I lose money doing this.
As a true fan should. Okay. So that's good to hear. So, yeah, where's this Cosmic Crisp confusion come from? Because I think that day that I texted you, Brian, and Andy from the supermarket with my kids, and I was talking of a big game to the kids. I was like, don't worry, guys, Dad's got a friend that knows all about apples. We're going to get the very best apples. I think I had in my head too, I remember the Cosmic Crisp being exalted, being heralded as a great apple.
Well, it's an interesting apple, the Cosmic Crisp, because it is part Honeycrisp, which is why I elevated it to have high expectations. It's got great lineage. Honeycrisp is one of the best apples in the world. It's one of the most popular apples in the world. And when I first tried the Cosmic Crisp, I expected it to be as good, if not better, than the Honeycrisp. It should have been the heir apparent to the Honeycrisp apple. In fact, it is the most marketed apple in history. Wow. They spent $10 million advertising the Cosmic Crisp. It was supposed to be the next big apple. And
the iPhone 20.
I was able to try the apple early before it went to mass market. And when I tried it early, it wasn't very good. And they told me that it's maybe not ready yet. And then it wasn't ripe enough, and it lacked the crispness I would expect from an apple that heralds Honeycrisp lineage.
Too tart? Was it too tart?
It had no flavor. I think it was just truly wasn't ready. It had no flavor. It tasted like biting into a wet rock. Like you don't taste anything.
Soft, wet rock. But was it the size of an apple? I mean, can apples get to full size but not be flavored yet?
Well, I guess they can. They can if they're not fully ripe. If it's early in the season, then they can be flavorless.
It's sounding like a snow cone. One of those like a snow cone that hasn't had the flavoring squirted on it.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's just ice at the moment. Then we squirt the blue or the red on it.
It's great.
Then it's finished.
So where does it sit? So did you then give them the benefit of the doubt? You would have been keen to go straight back to your keyboard and tell the Crisp what's what. But what have you done instead? Have you held back your judgment?
I held back my judgment, and I waited till it came to mass market so I could try it as the public did. Mm-hmm. And I'm actually, did Maddie say whether she liked the apple or not?
No, she was more just, she feels like, when someone tells you to go see a good film and it's the best, and then when it wasn't the best, you get confused, where if it was kind of pitched in as a mediocre film, you could have walked away going, I really like that. I think she's just confused.
I think she was excited to share with her family that she'd brought home a kind of a celebrity of apples. And that was my recollection too of the Cosmic Crisp episode, although now I realise maybe I was slightly conflating the fact that it was this hyped apple.
Yeah.
That had a huge marketing spend behind it.
It's hyped. It is a celebrity apple, but it's more like a reality star as opposed to Tom Cruise or something, because
there's no substance.
You hear about it all the time,
you hear, but then you in person, it's not as good.
Right.
Yeah, this is-
Well, Brian, we actually experienced this for the radio show. If any big star came out to Australia for a film,
Yeah.
the film was pretty shit generally because if it was good, they didn't have to come to Australia. So suddenly we've got the Rock Johnson in the studio. We're like,
He was coming out for Tooth Fairy. He wasn't coming out for Fast and the Furious.
So the $10 million spend maybe speaks to this
It covers
phenomenon.
Yeah.
It covers the problem.
It's an incredibly well name. The name is incredible. It's marketed well. It has great lineage, and it doesn't taste bad. The reason why I put it on my pure shit Apple list is because it does not match the hype. It was supposed to be the next big Apple. It's supposed to compete with the Honeycrisp. It's supposed to compete with the Red Delicious and the Galas of the world. It's supposed to be the next big Apple.
Yeah.
I don't want to do a definitive review of the Cosmic Crisp Apple. In fact, Maddie is not the only one to be confused and befuddled by this apple. I have given it mediocre reviews. I have given it bad reviews. It is hyped. It is confusing. There's lots of people saying lots of different things. There are paid enterprises that are putting information into people's mouths and brains about the Cosmic Crisp being amazing. And I just want to make sure that I review it properly so that the Maddies of the world are not let down. My brand is gold, and there's nothing more important to me than people respecting what I have to say about Apple. And if Maddie is upset by what I have to say, then I will say this. I would like to personally apologize to her for putting her in the position to be so embarrassed and ashamed of delivering an apple to her family. That is against the Frangie Code. That is against everything I stand for. My whole life, I have no children. I have no children. All I have to leave behind in this world is my reviews and recommendations of apples. And if there is even one person who is disappointed by that, then my entire life is put into question.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's great. Well,
absolute question of legacy, an absolute legacy play there. I think legacy protected there, Bri. So,
We'll wait and get the official review. We'll look up your website.
But I fell into the same trap, and that's why I was messaging the other day because I forgot I remembered the name. Again, it's that dang marketing at work. I remembered the name Cosmic Crisp because they've spent the money on the name.
Yep.
And it's in my head for the wrong reasons. It's like think of a famous song. Okay, I thought of Katy Perry. Is she my favorite singer? I regret to inform you she's not. But sorry, Paul Simon, you're not paying enough these days for marketing and Katy Perry's got you.
Yeah, exactly. Frange, thank you very much for joining us, mate. Really appreciate it.
No problem.